here with Susie McMurray, and Susie, for me, you're an artist of real integrity, and you've produced many amazing site-specific commissions in sort of wonderful, large-scale historic places, and you commensurate skill with the materials. But maybe if you could just tell me a little bit more about your life and you before your life as an artist.
My previous
Your
life.
previous life.
Well, I wasn't always an artist. I was a classical musician. That's what I trained as.
Yeah.
I went to music college and I played with the Halle and various other orchestras. But when I had kids, I stopped playing and worked for a while doing other jobs. And when it got time to pick things up again, I decided I didn't want to go back to music. So I did a sculpture degree in an MA. And discovered that it was what I should have always done. So it was what was missing. I hadn't discovered it at the time, but here it was now, and it was much more satisfying than playing music. Partly because I was in control of it in a way that I wasn't in an orchestra.
But are there ways that being a musician, a trained classical musician, has maybe informed your practice as an artist?
Definitely, I think so, because you can see I am fairly obsessive. Obsessive compulsive sort of. Yeah, the repetition. You spend your life as a musician practicing things, repeating them over and over again, never quite getting them right, trying to make them perfect. When you get them right, you have to go back again and do them the next day. And I think you can see that in the processes that I use. The repetition of objects, of gestures, of processes and techniques, things get sort of layered and moved over and over. And also I think there's something to do with what I did get from music was that amazing sort of thing that hits you somewhere. It's not an intellectual thing, it's emotional, but it's visceral, it's bodily. When you're in the middle of an orchestra and you're playing, it's in you, it's through you. And in a way I want to get that from a piece of work. When I'm experiencing a piece of art, whether it's mine or someone else's, I want to be encompassed by it. Not physically necessarily, but in every sense. So I'm looking for that in the work that I make. I'm looking for something that just sucks me in on every level, critically, theoretically, viscerally, emotionally, materially, everything.
And in turn, the audience, you want them obviously to have an emotional response to your work too.
Exactly, it's sort of they're engaged with it,
Yeah.
and they bring their own experiences to it as well. You sit listening to a piece of music, and you're bringing yourself to it, and it's the same with art.
Yeah. Okay. So you're working on Cloud, which is a site-specific commission for the Great Hall in Winchester, and it's part of the Hampshire's Big Theme 1914. It's a response to the First World War, but it's more than that. It's about conflict, loss, memory, and commemoration. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about sort of the ideas behind the work?
Yes, I feel the cloud of war really is. We think a lot about the people who were lost and the people who died and the people who were affected very directly that way, and that's right. But I also feel that the cloud of war envelops everybody a lot more. It doesn't just stop at that sort of memorial remembering. It inveigles its way into the lives of the people who are left behind. It inveigles its way into the lives of people when they come back. You think, of the problems of shell shock and modern day stress and trauma, and those things don't go. And it's kind of, to me, it's that kind of. It's more hard to get hold of. It's like smoke. It's like it's just there, and so I want it there as this kind of thing that's over your head. It's a presence that doesn't just end with you can't sort of box it up neatly. It goes away, and it's still with us. It's something completely contemporary as well as historic.
Yeah. So part of the installation, you're producing these replica identity tags. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about the significance of those?
Right. Well, when I was researching, I mean, other people know more than me, I'm sure, but I didn't realise that what the ID tags that the soldiers in the First World War, the British soldiers, had. When you think of ID tags, you think of American dog tags.
Yeah.
And I was very interested to discover that they were these fibre discs.
Mm.
In fact, they were asbestos fibre, I believe, on a piece of twine, which I thought of as being more, they were around people's necks, close to their hearts, essentially. And it seemed like a very poignant, sort of fragile thing compared to a sort of metal thing. And they feel to me like a kind of metaphor for individual human lives. And what I've done is combine them with barbed wire and a cloud above them.
Yeah.
So but they are a sort of human element. And we're using 40,000, which is the number of people from the Hampshire Regiment who served. And we've written the names of the people that we know of, the war dead from Hampshire, on
The whole of the Hampshire
Yeah.
Regiment. So
over 10,000 names.
over 10,000 names from the First World War conflict to Second World War to more recent conflicts.
That's
So
right.
There's a wonderful kind of Hampshire story there in itself, but you're also introducing some other names, and we've invited the public. What else, contemporary, have you brought into those names?
Well, we've included, because it isn't just, it's about Hampshire,
Yeah.
but it's also about, again, the bigger thing. It
wider-
spills, it doesn't
Yes.
stay in a box. So there are names from people who were lost in Afghanistan,
Right.
there's people from Northern Ireland, and there's really anybody that someone wants to write on the tag.
Yeah.
So anyone can put a name on
And their
themselves.
own as
and
an
their own, because if you have a loved one who was affected, you've been affected.
Yeah.
So you are affected by the cloud of war as well. So, and it was a very poignant experience for myself and my team. A lot of us have sat writing these names on the tags, and it's really affecting to sit, and it's almost an act of memorial in itself.
Yeah.
Writing the name of someone you don't have any idea who they were, but you see their details, and to just physically write their name down.
You're individually honouring them almost in that. in that
and you've
act.
no idea. And that again is something that I think is interesting. It's that very private, very personal, individual story, but it's also subsumed into this whole that is, I don't know, you can't. It's a mass.
It's not
no
tangible,
it's,
is it?
Yeah, no, it's this big, huge idea that's almost hard to get your head around. The idea of the number of people.
Yeah.
But then again, you've got this individual, and it's this kind of tension between the two, trying to understand the personal significance, but also understanding the whole.
So materials are really central to your practice, and you seem to weave these narratives with use of different materials and even the building itself or the site that you work in. How is that kind of materialised through the materials that you're using in Cloud?
Well, yeah, I mix all those things together, and that's the way I work. I kind of see ideas as materials just as much as the physical stuff.
Yeah.
We're using barbed wire, which we found on an MOD site in Aldershot,
Right.
which is about 30 or 40 years old, so it's all rusted, and obviously that's a reference, and that's jagged.
Yeah.
So, and it has a truth because it's
Yeah.
been used in the military. It's not just off a farm
No.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So to me, that's got a truth to it. And the ID tags, again, obviously we've had them printed, and they are a physical thing that went around people's necks. They're not replicas, but they're a reference to, because they are slightly oversized. So it's not that we've tried to make perfect ID tags. We couldn't make them out of asbestos anyway, could we?
No.
And then the netting, I believe it's called butterfly netting. And it kind of, to me, it's a whole other, that kind of, you think of that sort of, the idea, immediately makes you think of wings getting caught, and you think of all those people, and, getting tangled and caught up, so it's that reference. And also the kind of ephemeral, ethereal, and the cloudiness of it, the way it
it's
behaves.
nebulous in its
is.
own.
Yeah, that's a good word, nebulous.
Yeah.
It is, and it floats about. So it's the combination of those things together.
And obviously you have worked in many historic sites before, in Keddleston Hall, and I think St Mary's in York as well. And what is it about the Great Hall that has sort of attracted you, or why does it feel appropriate perhaps for this work?
Again, I think it's because it's such a big communal space. It's a kind of, it's about the community, and it's so old, it's seen many conflicts
Yeah.
go through, and it's a place that you go, you know, it has a memory,
Yeah.
and it's the hugeness of it that, yeah, in a way it's impersonal, but then when you get down and you look at the individual bits of it, you know, it carries its history, and there's marks on the floor, everything's uneven, and you know, it's like old skin in a way, and it's a perfect sort of container for this kind of thought.
Yeah. And also you tend to work on quite a large scale as well, so it seems quite appropriate really to have something of that vastness to be able to you know, exhibit your work.
So using something quite vast is quite
Yeah.
scary to
Yeah.
actually, can I fill this?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Just the last thing, I think for me your work has a lot of tension in it and that almost pull at the fabric of the work itself. So, you know, we've talked about mortality and immortality and chaos and order that we hope will come through in
Yes.
the work.
Yeah.
Maybe just tell us a little bit more about how that's come working in Cloud.
Okay. Well, I mean, those are basic things in my work, and as you say, the mortality and immortality, and the people who are left behind and the people who are here. That's, you know, it's in the work. You
Yeah.
can see that, and that comes from something in my practice, which I think comes back to the musician thing.
Right.
It's that you, as a musician, you make a piece of work, you play a piece, and it's gone the moment you've made it. A bit like a life that just gets snuffed out, you know. So there's that direct connection to the soldier's life. But for me, that is an ongoing thing in all my work, that I have to keep trying to understand that fact that you can be here, but you are fragile and that you're going to be gone.
Yeah.
It's getting your head around that, and because I guess it's what they call the nature of human life, isn't it? The human condition. So it's me just again trying to understand that juxtaposition between being solid and powerful and here, and you know,
Yes.
in a way I suppose it's like
Present
the
and-
presence and the confidence of, you know, and the necessity to fight,
Yeah.
but then also accepting at the same time that you're mortal and fragile, and that kind of mismatch and incomprehensible two ends of the same thing are what make us human. It's that musical thing, and in that way you have to be there to experience it.
Yes.
That's sort of, you know, we can't really understand what it's like to experience. We can only sort of have our own experience. But yeah,
Bring those to the work.
Yeah,
actually.
exactly.
You've talked about this, the hovering of memories and
Yeah.
personal stories, and
Yeah.
you know all the people that have contributed to the project. Actually, everything's
is so
woven
many.
in. Yeah, it's been woven in together and sort of seems to hover between the
yeah, 'cause
cloud.
I feel
and
like the
cloud.
tags on the ground and the cloud above, and somewhere in between that is the personal stories. We don't know what the stories of the people whose names we've written on
Yeah.
the tags are, but they're there.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and I'm fascinated by that. Is something there just because you don't know it? I guess it's Schrödinger's cat and all that sort of thing, but it's kind of, you know, just because we can't completely pin it down and write it down and justify it and say this is how it is, doesn't mean that it's not there and real.
And valid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Shouldn't be